Many of us would have heard the phrase that it is better to give than it is to receive at some point during our lives. Although, how many of us can actually say that this is something that we practice on a daily basis, and particularly in business where it matters the most? To discuss this and more, the Rugby Business Network is truly honored to be joined by international speaker, best-selling author, and sales genius, Bob Burg. Bob, it is incredible to have this opportunity to speak with you. Thank you for taking the time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very kind introduction.
Pleasure. Well, Bob, we all have choices to make in our life, where we're going to live, who our friends are going to be, what we're even going to have for dinner tonight. When it came to picking a career to pursue, why did you decide that it had to be in business, and what is it about this environment that attracted you?
Well, in a sense, I sort of fell into what I ended up doing because I started out as a broadcaster, first as a sportscaster on radio, and then a newscaster on television. I was in a small market and wasn't really that good at it, and I ended up kind of getting into sales just as a way of making some extra money because, again, I was in a very small market. I found sales was really my thing. Now, at first it wasn't because I had no idea how to sell, and I had no training in it. So for the first few months, I floundered, and then and this is about 40 years ago now, I was in a bookstore and saw that there was a section on sales, which surprised me. I didn't even realize sales was something that was taught. I just thought, you went in, you knocked on doors, you made calls, you taught, how wrong I was. And I started learning from people like Tom Hopkins and Zig Ziglar, first through their books, then going to seminars and listening to and it really was something that once I knew how to do it, it was totally different. Now, one of the great things about being in sales or business itself is that's where your education really begins because you begin reading great books, and there was a lot of personal development in it. And I came to really love personal development because you grew. You grew first on the inside, and then your growth on the inside manifested into growth on the outside. And once I began to really have a lot of success in selling, I began teaching it to others and eventually went into the business of teaching sales and communication skills and so forth. And it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Absolutely. Well, in 2008, you'll know that a little story about a powerful business idea took the business world by storm. It is obviously your book, The Go-Giver, which went from national bestseller to a global phenomenon and has since been translated into over 20 languages and has more than 650,000 copies sold. Where did the idea or inspiration come from to write the book along with John David Mann?
Years ago, I had a book called Endless Referrals, which was a book on really how to feel a lot more comfortable in terms of building relationships with people in the business sense that would result in the all-important know you, like you, trust you feelings. And I've often said, and it was my mantra for years, that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. It was a traditional how-to book. But over the years, I'd read dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds, I don't know, I guess maybe not, but dozens and dozens of business parables. And I always found that when reading parables, there was a real connection. And I think that's because stories connect with people. They connect on a heart level. And so I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take the basic idea of endless referrals, the know, like, and trust, and put that into parable form. So I thought, what's the main characteristic of a know, like, and trust relationship? Well, it's that the person's always giving to others. They're always giving value to others, which is really what we mean when we say giving, being constantly focused on creating value for others. And so we came up with the name, The Go-Giver, in a sketchy outline, but it wasn't really until John came into the picture that it really took off and came together. He's a brilliant writer and storyteller. I'm much more of a how-to author. I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. John is a great storyteller. So as soon as he came into the picture, wow, we now had a book that we could get behind and that the message would really connect with people.
Definitely some great chemistry between the two of you. Well, central to The Go-Giver, for those that have not read the book, is the 5 Laws of Stratospheric Success. Could you briefly outline what the 5 laws are and what does it mean for someone networking in business?
It's based really on the premise. All 5 laws are connected to the premise that shifting your focus, and this is really the key, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing value to others. Doing so is not only a pleasant way to conduct business, but the most financially profitable way as well. And the laws themselves, or the 5 laws, are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. The law of value simply says to make each experience with another person so fantastic and so wonderful that they want to do business with you, right? They want to be a part of your life. They believe they're getting far more in value from you than what they're paying. Now, at the same time, of course, you're also making a very, very healthy profit. Law number 2, the law of compensation, says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So now here we're talking about the number of lives you impact with the value that you provide. Law number 3, the law of influence, says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. This sounds counterintuitive, but it's what every great leader, top influencer, and top producing salesperson does. They're always asking, what does the prospective customer want? How do they see value? How do I do things in such a way that brings ultimate value to them? Law number 4, the law of authenticity, says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And this simply means show up as yourself. Don't try to be anyone else. Learn from others, absolutely. Study others, learn from others. Adapt their wisdom, but don't adopt their personality. Be yourself. Constantly, consistently, day after day, week after week, month after month, and that's when people feel comfortable with you. That's when people feel safe with you. And law number 5, the law of receptivity, says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. That means we don't just breathe out. We also have to breathe in. It's not a matter of are you a giver or a receiver. It means you're both a giver and a receiver. All the giving in the world, the adding of value to others, it's fantastic, it's great, but you've also got to make yourself willing to receive.
Well, it's incredible how, when you put those 5 laws together, how actually powerful they can be. Well, from what you have encountered, Bob, which one of the 5 laws do businesses struggle with the most, and for what reason?
Oh, that's such a great question. And the answer is receptivity, the 5th one. I can't tell you how many people have written to us, emailed us, and said, reading that about receptivity, that brought it together. That's finally given me permission, they've said, to allow myself to receive. I think the reason is because life gives us this message that prosperity somehow is bad, that if someone's wealthy, it means they somehow did something bad in order to get that wealth. And I mean, there's all sorts of people in the world, of course, but it's such a ridiculous premise. When no one is forced to buy from you, the only way, and which is how it should be, that's what we call a free market economy, when no one's forced to buy from anyone else. They do it on their own volition. And I often say, no one's going to buy from you because you need the money. They're not going to buy from you because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you. They're going to do business with you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. With that in mind, it means you have to serve them well. The only way in a free market economy that you can become wealthy is by serving others and serving them very, very well. But the message we get from media, whether it's from schooling, whether it's, I don't know, but all these messages about lack, that it's good to be poor, and that, if you're wealthy, it means you're not on it. That's why it's so important to study success constantly, to study abundance, and really have the mindset of understanding that if you're constantly bringing value to others, you've earned the right to receive.
Without a doubt. Well, there might be the misconception, if that's the right term, that businesses and individuals alike must constantly give. Is this the intention, and therefore how do companies prevent themselves from being taken advantage of?
Someone means by giving means they're giving themselves away, if that they're undervaluing themselves, that they're, well, yeah, that's a bad thing. They shouldn't do that. When we say giving, we mean simply constantly and consistently providing value to others. And absolutely, businesses and individuals must constantly do that. But there's nothing about that you would be taken advantage of. There's no natural association between being a go-giver and being a doormat, as we would say. No, absolutely not. It simply means you're constantly focused on providing value to the marketplace, whether we're talking adding value to the marketplace in terms of business, in terms of relationships, right? In terms of your team members, right? As a team member, you're constantly giving, but that doesn't mean you're being taken advantage of. It means you're doing things for the benefit of the team, and since you're a part of the team, you're doing it for your benefit as well.
All right, now that's good to know. Well, following the incredible success of The Go-Giver, 2 more books were published, and they are titled Go-Givers Sell More and Go-Giver Leader. Were these books always in the pipeline when The Go-Giver hit the shelves, or was there a demand for you to elaborate on the sales and leadership aspects, hence the other books?
They actually were not in the pipeline. We hadn't thought of them. We were just going to write that one book, The Go-Giver. And what happened was we had so many people asking, basically 2 questions. One was, can you share with us the how-to? Tell us the stories. How have people really used that? And, the marketplace will tell you what it wants. And so and we love the idea of doing it, because not only did we get so many stories from people, how they began using the principles in the book in order to really become more abundant in their business lives and their relationships and all sorts of. But the most successful people have been using these principles long before The Go-Giver came out. I mean, I don't think there's anything particularly original in The Go-Giver. These are our success principles that people have been using forever. Just they may not have said Go-Giver. That's maybe a term that we took into another level, if you will. But people have been conducting their lives and working working this way for a long time. So we have plenty of stories from people and from companies who did this. So, yeah, that was a real natural to come out with that book, and that one sold very, very well. And then, people said, well, although The Go-Giver, the original book, can be used for leadership, which a lot of people and companies do, it was really more about Joe, an entrepreneur. So what about a leader? What about a corporate leader? How does The Go-Giver apply? And that's when we wrote The Go-Giver Leader. So, yeah, I love your question, because really it was the marketplace that said, write these books, and we listened.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the marketplace has spoken again, because coming up now in 2018, your next book will be coming out, and it's called The Go-Giver Influencer. Can you touch on what this book is about, obviously without giving too much away, and how does a go-giver create influence both personally and in business?
We're very, very excited about this book. It is really a couple aspects of it. One is, as you said, it's about influence. What is influence? It's, when you think about it, influence on a very, very basic level can be defined as the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action. That's its definition, but that's not really the essence of influence. The essence of influence is what we would call pull as opposed to push, because great influencers don't push themselves on others. They don't push their ideas on others. They're not pushy, right? But what they do is they gently pull. They attract people to them. Great influencers attract people first to themselves and only then to their ideas. That's really what this book's about. It's another business parable. It's a story. It's about a man who is trying to take his company bigger, and there's a person, there's a woman who is the buyer at another company, and the two of them sort of really are not dealing with each other in a way that's productive. And so they learn how to influence. They learn how to work with each other in a way that each one benefits, and in a way that is a lot more about pull than it is push. So yeah, we're very excited about that.
And so are we. Well, Bob, apart from the inspirational series of books, you are also an exceptional keynote speaker and are involved in corporate speaking. When you are at a company leadership and sales conference, what is the most common question that you receive from the businesses you are assisting, which have included a Fortune 500 companies, franchises, and numerous direct sales organizations worldwide?
Well, I think one of the big things is, how does somebody apply this if they're not by their nature a giver or a go-giver? Okay, if by their nature or if by their learning, okay, they're one who says, no, it's, you got to just, focus on, on the money, focus on the sale, like the sale, don't worry. And it's a good question, and it deserves an answer, because if a person doesn't realize that a certain way they're doing something isn't productive, they're not going to change, right? And so when, again, we've been brought up to think business is about trying to, run people over, and it's about trying to impose your will on others. And if that's what someone thinks, if that's what their conscious or subconscious is telling them, it's going to be difficult for them to make a change. So the first thing I would say is, we need to be able to educate people as to why that is not a productive way for them to do business. So when we help a person see this, and that's the biggest question I get, how do we help? And that's it. You do it through asking questions, through helping them see that if they're focused on themselves, and they're focused on the money, they're actually much less likely to get the sale and make that money.
Wow. Well, you are busy touching on someone that might be conceived as being a go-getter. I'm not too sure if that's the right way to describe that person, but have you ever come across someone that is a go-getter as opposed to being a go-giver, someone who only looks out for their own interests? And can that person still be successful?
Sure. And what's interesting, we would actually say, even instead of using the word go-getter as the opposite of a go-giver, we would use the word go-taker. Because, we want people to be go-getters, because go-getters take action. Action is very important. We want people to be go-givers, because focusing on bringing value to others is very important. What we would say is the opposite of a go-giver is a go-taker. And that's the person who simply takes. Their entire focus is just what they can take. It would be, the focus is what they can get. So we love go-getters, but their focus can't be on the getting. The focus has to be on the giving. Do we meet go-takers out there? Absolutely, of course. There's plenty of them out there. Are there go-takers who are successful? A lot of times they're successful for a little while, but it's not sustainable. Because remember, if your focus is just on yourself, people really don't have an incentive to do business with you. But sometimes go-takers are so good at what they do, or they have a certain skill set or they're so good on the competitive plane rather than the creative plane, that they're able to hit certain areas of success. But there's two things about this. One, it tends to not be sustainable because it hasn't been built on the correct foundation. But also, even these go-takers who seem to be kind of successful more than you'd even think, they have to work 5 times as hard to maintain that as someone who's a go-giver, because they really don't have relationships out there. They don't have people who want to see them succeed. Do go-takers ever succeed? Of course they do. But is it productive as being a go-giver? No, it tends not to be.
So the message would be, don't be a go-taker, rather try to steer towards being a go-giver. Well, Bob, the principles that you have highlighted in the book, The Go-Giver, can they only be applied in the business environment, or could they possibly be transferred in some other way to professional teams and elite athletes to try and assist them?
We've got a bunch of coaches and players and so forth that utilize these principles, because yes, they absolutely fit into a business or athletic paradigm. I mean, you take the laws, the law of value, right, which is constantly, consistently focusing on providing value to others. Is there anyone more valuable on a team than that person who puts the interests of the team before themselves, right? So that's a team player, and that person not only brings tons of value to the team, but the team loves having that person as part of the team. Law number 2, how many people whose lives you touch? Well, when you're doing this, you're touching the lives of everyone on the team. Law number 3, placing the interests of the team before yourself, showing up authentically, being yourself, playing the position that you play because you wouldn't be as effective playing something else, right? We all have certain unique strengths and weaknesses, and so what we need to do is focus on those strengths, and that's the position we play. That's much more. And then, of course, there's receptivity. As part of a team, you hopefully win, and you've got to be receptive to winning. You've got to be receptive to the idea that when you've brought value to your team and your team has brought value to each other, that you deserve to win.
Well, for our sports and rugby enthusiasts busy listening, do yourself a favor and get a copy of The Go-Giver and read it. And now finally, Bob, with all your books and your keynote speaking and talks, you have given out so much brilliant advice to so many people over the years. What would you say, though, is the best piece of advice that you have ever received, and from whom?
I had been in sales for a couple of years. I'd been doing well, but certainly hadn't been realizing my full potential. I was sort of like Joe in The Go-Giver in the story. And it was an older gentleman. He was just about to retire. And I remember he took me aside one day. He said, Burg, if you want to make a lot of money in business, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Then he said, when you hit the target, you'll get a reward. That reward will come in the form of money. But never forget that the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. Your target is serving others. And once I understood that, and I realized that selling in business was not about me, and it wasn't even about the product or service, as important as the product or service is, but it's always about the other person. It's about the customer. It's about your team member. It's about your spouse. It's about those you're bringing value to. Once I realized that made just a world of a difference for me.
Some fantastic advice to leave it right there. Well, Bob, it has been such a fascinating conversation hearing about your brilliant approach to business. May you long continue to positively influence those around you, and I'm sure that the Rugby Business Network members will be eagerly waiting your next book coming out in 2018. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.